following announcement has been paid for by the Celtic World Order.
Hello there, afternoon. Welcome back to Celtic World Order podcast. As always, I'm Steve O'Martin. It's an absolute pleasure to welcome you back here at the show for the very last show of 2024. Of course, Hogmanay, the bells are round the corner. But as it says, the years may change, the situation remains the same, certainly from a Celtic perspective. As you can see, I'm joined today by two of the good guys up top with me, as of course, Paul D, and below is the ever-dashing Josh McCaffrey. Lads, it's great to have you here for this last episode of the season, but plenty of positives for 2024 to talk about, eh, Paul?
Absolutely, yep. Another brilliant season so far. Good progress on and off the park. Lots of exciting stuff happening with new training facilities. The girls' teams, the first team's absolutely fantastic, which we'll come on to discuss. It's another good season in the making.
Plenty to go in. Yourself, Josh, how have you felt about this year, and how are you feeling today as we approach the end of the year?
Yeah, it's been an entirely positive year. I think for Celtic, obviously, I think 2023 was a year of transition. Brendan Rodgers coming back to the club, and now his first full year back in charge. It's really been entirely positive, and I think there's a lot of optimism going into 2025 with the club, with a lot of things, transfer market, facilities, like you say, Paul, first team on the pitch in terms of progression and doing well in competition. So, yeah, everything's feeling good at the minute.
Absolutely, and we'll get round to all that. We'll have a wee look back at St Johnstone, a wee look at the year in general, and of course we'll look towards the game on Thursday, which I don't know, is it a dead rubber? Who knows? Let's talk about it anyway. It's there, it's going to happen one way or another. You know, remember, it could have been 6 points in it by the end of that one. Well, apparently it's not now, but there we go. So anyway, before we do that, we bit of housekeeping as always. We say welcome back to the channel. If you're one of our continued subscribers, then thank you very much for the regular support. We really do appreciate it. If you're new, it takes you 2 seconds and it's absolutely free. Just hit that subscribe button, hit the bell notification icon. Every time we go live, every time we do an update, you'll get notified. You'll never miss any content. If you want to help with the channel, you can. It's a donation, $1.99 in the member section. Just helps with overheads and running for ourselves. And you can get us elsewhere. X at CWPod 1888. We're on Blue Sky. We're on TikTok. We're on Spotify. Plenty of places to help out the channel. And hopefully you do that, because we are small, but there's always room for rapid expansion. So here's to a strong 2025 for Celtic World Order, as well as the club itself. So anyway, yeah, guys, plenty to talk about. It's been a very, very positive year for Celtic on and off the field, and I think was kind of surprising us when we look at it. The mood music around about this time last year to where we are now is completely different. As Josh said there, I think it was something of a wee bit of a period of transition for Celtic. The manager came in. He says, you know, we'll see you back in May. Raised a bit of eyebrows at the time. It was topsy-turvy, up, down, loads of bends in the roads, loads of dips. Wee dips of form, maybe a bit of discontent players in the pack, but we got it together. We pushed on in January, and from there on, at the start of this year, we really haven't looked back. We've went from strength to strength. The performances have got better. The squad has got better. We've done better in Europe, and of course, we've maintained doing well at the top of the table and also in the bank. We kind of like that one as well, so we'll get round to all that, but we'll just start back from the last game, won't we? Don't want to go into it too much. You've seen it. You've watched it. We've spoke about it, but I think we need to look back on it, Josh, because there was a few performances in there, particularly when we look at the game on Thursday. Real food for thought there. A lot of positives that came out that game.
Yeah, 100%. It was somewhat of a routine home domestic game against bottom of the table, as you would kind of expect. It was very similar to the Motherwell game in Boxing Day. Celtic dealt with St Johnstone well. Exact similar to the Boxing Day game in terms of a goal in the first half and 3 in the second. So, yeah, good performance, dominant, attacking, displaying a lot of goals, and that's entirely positive. And looking at players, individuals who are standing out, Arne Engels has been brilliant the past couple of games for me. 2 man of the matches in a row, and I think it's a goal and an assist as well. So he's playing well. Good to see Kyogo get the 2 goals at the St Johnstone game. I think that will serve him well going into the derby, because I think it was non-negotiable that he'd have been starting at Ibrox anyway, even if he didn't get those goals. So good for him to get those. And I was impressed by young Alex Valle at left back. I don't think he's going to start at Ibrox. I'm sure we'll get into that later on, but he still threw his hat in the ring for a starting place for me with his performance. So, yeah, guys doing well. You obviously didn't miss Callum McGregor one bit either at the weekend.
Not at all.
Bernardo, Engels, Hatate all worked in tandem in the midfield. So, yeah, it's good to see Celtic and Brendan Rodgers utilising the full squad. And listen, he's going to continually need to, because there's 9 games in January alone. So all these guys, fringe players, whoever's coming into the team needs to perform. And recently they've been doing that. And that was apparent against St Johnstone.
No, it's really strong there, Paul. And it's, Josh says, look at that. We rested Cal McGregor. Now, it's always a point for rotation. Cal McGregor, you can fully justify that. There's no need for sports science to tell us that maybe you should give Cal McGregor a rest. He plays every single game, week in, week out, season after season. So it was a wee bit of a surprise there, but a perfect opportunity against a languishing bottom of the table St Johnstone. And as Josh said, we didn't miss a beat. What I did like about it is it got to show you perhaps what these players around Cal McGregor have to offer. I'm not saying Cal McGregor's a shackle, or some sort of shackle on any of these players by any sense, but particularly when we look at Arne Engels, that creative side, he was being the Cal McGregor. He was moving about the pitch continually, looking for the ball, picking up those positions, trying to make those forward passes. A very, very positive, very great performance by him. A real return to form, and arguably his best performance in a long time. Even going back as far as his debut, I would say. Thing there is obviously not the minutes against Rangers, talking full debuts here. That was really positive for me there, Paul. We've sat on here. We've always defended Arne Engels, who says we think he's a great player, but there's a reason why we paid that fee. If you want to put stock on that, next year will be his year. Maybe it's just a wee bit of clever management by the manager. He's protected him a wee bit without making a big deal off it. He's integrated him back in slow and steady. I felt the previous week, the man of the match was maybe just a wee token. Take that and see if it can kick him on. By God, it did. And he deserves all the plaudits he gets. And that's where we come down to making these decisions looking towards Ibrox. We talk about Bernardo. I'm a big fan. But is that just saying we're being cagey because he's a safe pair of hands? Engels, for me at least, has done enough to say, yeah, put him straight in. Let's go the opposite way. Let's go all out attack. Let's play our flair players and let's try and see how they or can't deal with it.
He's a young player, as we know, who's come in with a huge price tag. Now, the price tag wasn't set by the player. We know that that's obviously set by other people out with his control. Since he came in, he's looked great. He's got time for development. He finds fantastic positions on the park, which is noticeable, and his deliveries are great. I think looking ahead to the game on Thursday, I think you've got to put him in. He's playing now. He's picked up a cap or two for the full Belgian international team. He can handle that on Thursday. Very sure of it.
Definitely. It was really, really positive to see. Cal McGregor going out there. The flow, the tempo, the speed, what everything we'd expected from Celtic was really, really there. It was quite a complete performance from Celtic. And as Josh said as well, another one or two guys, we got Scales maintaining his position. We saw the impact, we saw the improvement, particularly from the cup final when he came on. You saw what a difference it made. Cherny instant aside, who cares? Go and cry about that one. But we've seen the improvement. And I just think that, it's the old iron sharpens iron. We brought in Trusty. He came in. He's been fantastic. He really hasn't done too much wrong. But you just feel that whenever Scales has came back in, he's looked better again. He's looked more assured. And he's really pushing Trusty. And I think for me, again, I would go with him looking at that game there. Alex Baye, left back, is one that's up in the air. We've got Taylor. He's now free to speak to any team that he wants as the window's about to open. Are we going to keep hold of him? The manager wants to. Alex Baye, a bit of question marks around him. And I think if you look at his social media output, it looks as if he's not going to be going anywhere either. We're talking about Kieran Tierney. We're talking about Alex Baye. Why not try and get both, eh?
Yeah, definitely. If you could get both, it would be good. I think obviously it's I feel, in my opinion, it's a foregone conclusion that Taylor's not going to be at the club next season. The talk today was Dynamo Zagreb, actually, is the latest one, which is quite strange.
Random, isn't it? Yeah.
That was one that came out this morning. But yeah, I don't think Taylor will be at the club next season. So it's going to be, I think Tierney will definitely come back at some point. Whether it's going to be in January, whether it's going to be in the summer, then it's just about getting someone else in the door. Valle looks good. And I would try and get him on a permanent deal. if I was a betting man, I wouldn't put my money on Alex Valle staying beyond next summer. Definitely stay in January. And he's a good young player who's improving every game, I think, and he offers something different to Taylor. Like as much as we talk about the inverted role, and Taylor does very well in that, Vaille's completely different. He'll constantly offer an outlet on the outside, making those overlapping runs and putting good balls into the box. And every time he's played, I think he's only had one bad performance, and that was away at Aberdeen. He came off at half-time. Aside from that, he's 20 years old, and he's been consistent in his displays. Atalanta away, he was magnificent. He came on, set up the goal against Club Brugge, and he's not really put a foot wrong for me. So that's the case for starting him on Thursday. I think there is a good case for it. In terms of midfield, though, we were talking about obviously Bernardo, Engels, etc. I think you start both of them and you drop Hatate. At Ibrox, my midfield would be McGregor, Engels, and Bernardo there. And Hatate maybe comes on as an impact player, because we've seen I think it was the Motherwell game in Boxing Day where he came off the bench and really punished the tired legs of Motherwell and scored his goal and made a really good impact in that game. So it's one where maybe with 20 minutes to go, half an hour to go, the Rangers players are tired in the midfield. You bring on Rio Hatate, and you know what you can do when a team's opened up. So that'd be my choices for Ibrox.
Yeah, there's loads of things to go on, and we'll go on to Ibrox. We'll go on to this sort of headache, if you want to call it that. The one thing that we've noticed throughout the course of the season, sometimes the nature of the squad depth is a wee bit of a fallacy, particularly if we look at Yang. I'm sure we'll touch on him as well, but I think we can all agree that, as you say, we need attacking options. Before we came on, we're talking about what do we need, and you say, I definitely think it's going to be some level of attacking options. You said that, Josh. The manager's been saying that. That's the noise he's been making, and I think it goes without saying. We're really realistically looking at someone who can truly push Maeda out in that left as an option there. It wouldn't go amiss to also have it over on the right, and or if we want to go fully greedy, have some sort of striking option, or someone that can play off the wing, or as a striker that's a bit more versatile. But it's a real good position to be in. There's worse positions to be in getting into a game against Rangers where you could be 17 points ahead. You've got one cup in the trophy. You're top of the league. You're undefeated. You're undefeated at home, including Champions League games. That's a really, really great position that we find her in. I just want to reflect on that in general, Paul. What a transition over the last year. The calendar year has been fantastic. It's been a real turnaround. To generalise, what is the result of that? Do you think when Rodgers first came in that it was a bit of a slow burn where it was trying to feel out the squad, not make wholesale changes, and it to adapt? Because we'll be honest, we've been on here before in that first season and there was the seeds of doubt. What's going on here? We were promised X, Y, and Z, and we've seen none of it. We didn't really see the Rodgers side, the Rodgers style, the DNA until, let's be honest, January onwards, and we've never really looked back.
This time last year, Santa was getting a hard time on the pitch, and obviously he made an appearance this year with the league trophy, so that says it all. It has been an absolutely fantastic season so far. With social media being what it is, I think a lot of people jump to conclusions and jump on players' backs, jump on the manager's back. With that in mind, when the manager came back, I was one of the ones that still had to take a bit of time to be convinced because I was still quite raw after his departure. However, he's shut me up and he's shutting us all up. So this season going forward, it's been absolutely fantastic. We're head and shoulders above the rest of the competition. That shows in the league table. So I'm absolutely looking forward to Thursday. I think the progress has been fantastic. It shows it there, The data doesn't lie.
Yep. That's the thing, Josh. I mean, what a turnaround. We've come on and we'll never apologise for it. We always go with the eyeball test, yeah? And I think perhaps we sometimes say, are we spoiled? Are we entitled? I wouldn't say we're entitled, but I'd say we're spoiled, where we had such a run of just sweeping everybody aside, goal fests, everybody firing, everything clicking week on, week out. And then when you get those little lulls, when you get those gritty results, you get those 1-0s that turn into a 2-0 late on, and it just feels a bit laboured, you will complain. And you always think, what's going on here? Because you've been so acquainted to having something so sweet all year round, or the vast part of the year. It's baffling when you look at it. When you actually take that step back, you take that emotional side out of it and you look at those numbers, compared to where we were last season, we are top in every single metric. are we going about our business quietly? Is expectations set unnaturally high based on the quick start that we had and the swift end to last season, mate?
Yeah, well, perhaps. I think like you obviously see a bit of Celtic fans are quite bad for it. And Scottish people in general are bad for overreacting to things. Like you look at even the Dundee United draw a couple of weeks ago. People were majorly overreacting to that 0-0 draw, and panicking and everything. When Celtic had half a team, it was a wind affected game, and a point probably wasn't too bad looking at it in hindsight now. And obviously there was the Celtic get booed off the park beginning the year against Ross
Bizarre.
County. 1-1-0, get booed off the park, which was very strange. But expectations are high, and the success this club has had since its inception really has made the bar high. I look across the city and this puzzles me because since 2012, or even since they've come back up to the top flight, Rangers have won 3 trophies. 3 trophies, that's it. Same number as St Johnstone since 2012. Yet they have an entitlement that they think they should be competing with Celtic. What gives them that entitlement? They've won 1 title in the last 13. Whereas, if you're calling Celtic fans entitled, then look across the city because they've barely won anything and they're thinking they should be competing. Listen, Rangers are a big club, etc., and they probably should be. But at the same time, I don't think there's a sense of entitlement among Celtic fans. It's more that you just want the best for your club and you see the potential that Celtic has. And boy, have they lived up to that in the past year. Unbeaten at home in all competitions. Incredible. Celtic Park haven't lost a game in 2024. I think the last time that happened was early 2000s in all competitions, I want to say. And 50 games in 2024, losing 2. One of them, several dodgy decisions at Tynecastle, and the other one to a Champions League finalist where everything just went wrong away from home. So it's been an incredible year, and I don't think Celtic are getting far from enough credit than they deserve for it, because I think a lot of the media focus, particularly in the Glaswegian fishbowl, has been across the city and the crisis there, but Celtic just deserve so much credit. And Rodgers spoke about it after the game at the weekend, Sunday, saying that this has been historical and it's been a real joy to see the growth of this team over the past year. And as long as the manager is still in place, then personally I think things are only going to get better.
Absolutely. I mean, see what you were saying there, Paul, about it's the manager, and he's laying mention to how well we've done and the success we've done. Do you get this feeling that, not in a I told you so type of way, but we've seen it drip feed out through the course of this season so far, but it's almost as if the manager's taking wee mental notes, he's taking wee receipts, and he's taking the opportunity to remind people of things. You know, we take the result for against Atalanta. Is that pragmatic enough for you? We get the game at the weekend. Not bad for a team that don't play attacking football. We got it with the Aberdeen 6-0, you know, all the shouts where Aberdeen were here, they were going to challenges, they were the real deal. And listen, some of us, including myself, really bought into it, rightfully so at that time. I didn't ever feel that they'd go the distance, but I felt that they would stick around. And then after that one, it was almost another comment to say, you see, that game, the 2 each at Celtic Park, that really shouldn't have happened, and that's what should have happened. We've seen it. It's all eyes directly ahead on the prize for the manager. That confidence that he's got, it's just got to be drip and feeding and into the players, isn't it?
He's a very experienced man. He's a very experienced and he's a proper football manager, which certain other clubs seem to struggle to find. We're very, very blessed with the fact that even with Ange and then coming into Brendan, that we've had that consistency where we've had a manager who can adapt to whatever's in front of him, build a really good squad the way he wants it, and adapt to what we've got in front of us competition-wise. And it's obviously played out as we see. I think looking at how he's come in, he's obviously missed what he had here, and he's went away, came back, and no matter what we're faced with, he seems to have a plan B or a C, and it's been absolutely fantastic. In his first term, when he's been away, obviously people were looking at what he did elsewhere, and when he's came back in and he's made that comment about, you know, seeing us in May, he's fulfilled that. And then looking into this season, it's just getting stronger and stronger. Back him, give him the money he wants, keep him, obviously, as long as we possibly can. Keep him happy. He seems to be very happy at the club. He's making all the right noises. He's looking ahead to constantly the growth on and off the park, which we'll come to, and long may it continue.
Yeah, definitely. And just to come back to the weekend's action, which says loads of positives there. It's always great. Clean sheet at home, last home game of the year, putting on a show, as we say. 4-0. Good to see Kyogo, Josh, back in the score sheet. We were sitting here the other week there, weren't we? We were having that conversation that was saying, is it now time to play Daizen Maeda? And this is the great thing about Kyogo. For as much as he will sometimes frustrate the life out of you, you can never write him off. Write him off at his peril. And I think when we rightly so, we look at his output under the seasons of Ange, because we're now getting 4 years of Kyogo, which is in itself a rarity these days. You look at the output from Ange, yes, scoring more, getting on the end of more chances, but then you look at what he's doing under Rodgers. Yeah, not as many goals, but he's still a key player. And as I say, you can never write him off. Great to see him in. I think that all but assures himself a starting berth against Rangers midweek. But Kuhn again, back on the score sheet. Maeda continues to impress. It's just a really good position to be in. What did you think of Kyogo? Was that a real sort of showing off what he's used to? What was it clicked? For me, I felt the deliveries, and that was part to Arne Engels. Some fantastic balls in from him. There was the very early one, the long deep ball for the right directly across that he just couldn't get on the end of, but then also that one for the tap in, absolute pinpoint accuracy. Both the players looked like guys were really enjoying their football.
Yeah, definitely. I think Kyogo needed the goals just for his confidence. He's obviously hadn't scored in a while, so good for him to get the 2 goals going into the game at Ibrox. But I think in terms of output, obviously it's decreased since Postecoglou was in charge, but I think a lot of that's down to the fact that under Postecoglou, Celtic played a lot of cutback crosses. And if you look at the goals Kyogo scored under him, a lot of them were just tap-ins from about 5-6 yards out, coming from cutbacks, whether it be from Ralston overlapping, whether it be from Abada or Jota or Maeda. But now you look at his goals, there's not as many of those kind of cutback tap-ins. They're all kind of, whether it be headers, whether it be rebounds like we've seen with the header, whether it be latching onto a cross from deep. So I think the way Celtic play is obviously changed from Rodgers to from Postecoglou to Rodgers, and I think that's obviously made Kyogo's output decrease, but he's still a pivotal player and he's still got elite ability. Manchester City wouldn't have been sniffing about him in the summer if he wasn't a top player. And even when he's not scoring goals, his runs cause havoc for the defenders. He's constantly on the move. He can link the play well. He's a much better football player as a whole than Daizen Maeda, in my opinion. So if Celtic can keep him around, I think they should. But at the same time, obviously with the Atlanta United interest last week coming out, £10 million for a 29-year-old striker. Could you improve on him? I don't know. I genuinely don't know. Is it worth the risk of bringing in a young 22, 23-year-old striker to play alongside Daizen Maeda when you know Kyogo can do it? He's proven that he can do it in Champions League and derby games in the big matches, and you're going to get, 12 goals now for the season, and we're coming up for January. He could still end the season on 25 goals.
Easily. That's the thing, Paul. His output has been, as we say, a wee bit sort of lacking by comparison, but he still offers you so much. He's a very rounded player. We will go on to talking about potential incomings and outgoings in January, but it is a big question to ask. Let's just say things go on Thursday as we expect. We roll Rangers over. We're 17 points clear. Let's be honest, regardless of what happens this game, and I'll say it right now, the league is over. It is done. It would take something biblical for us to lose this lead. I just don't see it happening, particularly with the strength that we're position that we're in. And I believe that January will be a different kettle of fish. I don't see the errors and the stickiness of last season, that complacency kicking in this year. Days coming. But with Kyogo, not to get rid of a guy, I don't want rid of him.
No.
But as he says, if Atlanta were to come in, come in and say, here's 10 million for a guy who's 28. Is that something that we wouldn't have to sell him? But is it something that we'd maybe consider doing, particularly with the level of comfortableness that we are domestically? And obviously thinking, there's still some Champions League games to play. You would ideally want him around for them. But would you maybe take that risk?
I would like to get to the bottom of this shoulder injury and how is that being managed? Is it getting dealt with? Is it still something that he's struggling with? Who knows if that's something that is indeed holding him back. He's obviously a fan of the show and watches the show because a couple of videos ago I was on here discussing about, you know, the wee dip that he was having and how we should really maybe look at putting Maeda in for the St Johnstone game and going to Ibrox. So the wee man's obviously heard that, get the shooting boots on. The difference I thought at the St Johnstone game was the fact that we were playing very fast, whip, dangerous balls into that last wee third between where the goalkeeper doesn't want to commit in the back four, or, you know, that wee tiny wee area. That's where he got his joy a lot of the time under Anjan. That's where that goal, that predator's instinct, that's where he lives, you know, and he gets the header as well, diving header into the back of the net and stuff. I love him, absolutely love him. I have, as I said, I've got the autograph top through there. I'm a big fan. I hope it does stay. I hope that his goals do increase, and going forward in this season, the way things are set up, get him more support, get balls into him, and sort out the wing play where we can deliver fast moving, you know, football that he'll thrive on and develop into, you know, the rest of the season and putting the ball in the net even more.
Well, his return, when you actually look at it, 2 goals against St Johnstone are only going to help it. You'd be hard pushed to not, if you were a betting man, Josh, stick him on for a goal against Rangers. It didn't quite happen last time out, but he just has that sort of instinct around him. And obviously with the back of 2 goals there at the weekend, good performances and good service, which you'd like to think will get on to where their team is, because their team looks decimated from a back line sort of standpoint. Plenty of opportunity for us to get on it. He's only a brace here and there every other game against particularly these lower teams to really bring that stock back up, or nobody's going to start asking those questions. And as we say, it's absolutely possible with him to do it. Do you share the sentiment of Paul, where you would definitely keep him around, or do you think that Celtic could be tempted, given his age range, given that we've had 4 years of service out of him, etc.? And it comes again, I'd not try to sell our players, but the other most likely candidate, if there was anybody in the side of the first picks, would also be Hatai.
Yeah, the club would be tempted if the offer came in and if it was on the table, let's be honest. Celtic have had a knack for getting decent money for subpar players over the past, couple of years. Look at Bosan Lawal in the summer, Haksabanovic in the summer, Seagrace. They got about, £4 million combined for those 3 guys who barely played. But when Celtic sell their big assets, they usually get decent fees. Matt O'Reilly in the summer, £30 million. Kieran Tierney, Odson Edward in the past have all gone for decent money. And Kyogo, for a 29-year-old guy who I think's turning 30 soon, to get 10 million would be big, especially when you're not even guaranteed Champions League football next season. You need to go through a playoff still, in the season after that I think it's back to a lot of qualifiers. So £10 million would be a nice sum for the club. And like you said earlier, Steve, given the Celtic's position in the Champions League, they're 1 win away against the bottom of the league team, Young Boys, for going through. The league, I would argue, is in the bag, and you're playing for a Scottish Cup. I think Celtic can afford to bring in someone else, but at the same time, I personally, if it was me making the decisions, I probably wouldn't let him go, because he's that good. And it's one where if he eventually stays and doesn't get his next big contract in the next couple of months, he's probably just going to stay at Celtic for the rest of his career for the next 3-4 years, and then he'd be a real modern day great. What struck me about the reports were that in the one from Stephen McGowan was that it said Kyogo's only on 20 grand a week. When you look at it, when you look at the rest of the squad, they're on 30, upwards of 30. Your key players are like your McGregors, your Schmeichels, your Carter Vickers. So that kind of surprised me in that sense. So for who he is and what he's done for this club and how key he is and the goals he scores, he should, in my opinion, definitely be on more than that.
100%.
But at the end of the day, that's not down to the club. That's down to his agent, trying to get the best deal. And obviously, he switched agent last summer, got the new contract, until 2027 it is. So maybe it's one where if Celtic fend off the interest in January, or they don't get a bid that they want or a club that they want, they give him another deal, a longer term deal that keeps him at Celtic for the rest of his career, but they give him an upgrade in wage because he fully deserves it. Yeah.
Listen, I just want to take a wee rewind back and we'll dip in and out of the sort of action in between the other talking points. Again, back to the weekend's action against St Johnstone. Very assured, very positive performance. It was good to see, obviously, guys getting a bit of performances back in. Maeda and Kuhn in particular. They've been instrumental, Paul, in terms of the goals. Kuhn does what he does again. It's a classic goal. We've seen it. It's like a carbon copy. You know, if you layered every goal that he's scored throughout the course of the season, probably about 80% of them would be all end up in that exact same area with the exact same result. He's just hitting the ground running. He's came back into the squad after a wee bit of a layoff. Slow burn. but he's starting to pick up his form. I was really impressed with how he was getting himself up the field and around, real attacking threat, driving, going for his man, and also try to get in there as regular. And equally, Maeda as well, a real unsung hero in terms of this season. Or is he? You know, he was a cult hero. He's now becoming a fully bona fide hero. He's dependable. He's added goals, and against another great finish from him, it drops in and casual as you like, he just pokes that one home. We're looking at the game, particularly against Rangers. We always go cliche and say the midfield is going to be where the game is won and lost. I actually don't even buy into that this time round. I think that for me, it's going to be the wings. That's where we should be looking to attack. We'll look at Rangers. It's came up. Folk are mentioning it. Apparently, captain disappointed. He's injured. Boo-hoo. I wonder why he's upset about that. They don't have Suter. They don't have, what's his face, Balogun. We saw how they performed against Motherwell. They conceded 4 goals. Whether all them counted or not is irrelevant. For me, the secret to taking out Rangers and doing it swiftly is getting down those channels. It's a good warm-up game for you two guys, mate, to go and do that, is it not?
Absolutely. The midfield looks after itself. You know, as you say, there's been times before where that's in the papers and in the media for a week about the midfield changes and how that's where the engine room and that's where things will be won and lost. As you say, I think versus their man-to-man versus their midfield, I think that looks after itself pretty much, and without being gallus, no matter who we select, that should look after itself. In relation to the wings, I think Kuhn having AJ behind them at the weekend was a major telling sign as to why he played so well. That link up with the two being back fit and hitting the ground running and coming back into the squad ahead of this game and getting minutes into them was fantastic. Maeda is basically the cult hero. He really is. We are so spoiled to have him, and we really have to just absolutely enjoy what that guy gives us. And it's so complete. He's just constantly attacking. We've discussed it on here many times. I think him and Kuhn are obviously first names potentially on the team sheet for Thursday.
Steve-O doesn't realise he's on mute, does he?
You're on mute.
No, listen, it goes without saying. Listen, what I'm going to do, chaps, is I'm going to, in the meantime, leave you in the capable hands of both Paul and Josh to continue the discussion. I'm just going to move room here into another room in the household, and I'll be back with you imminently. So, lads, you can continue to talk all things that is great with Celtic right now.
I'll continue on with Maeda, because I think like obviously he was somewhat of a cult hero a couple since he joined, and then I think this past kind of year, this season has really been the making of him. Goals against Rangers, goals in the Champions League, winning penalty in the cup final. I really think he's kicked on and established himself as not just a kind of somewhat of a meme in the way he kind of carried himself and the bald characteristic and how quick he was, but people would criticise him for putting crosses into Rose Ed and everything, but he's a real now key player coming in. And he's, like you say, he's definitely one of the first names in the team sheet. I think Maeda will be gutted if the Tavernier rumours are true, him being injured at the weekend. Exactly, because absolute nightmares he's given him over the past couple of years.
Even internationally, I think I don't know what Maeda's international kind of prospects were when he first came to Celtic, or what he was doing in terms of how regular he was picked. But he's now having to regularly go and obviously represent Japan. And you see from his social media, whenever he's back in Japan, it's hero worship. There's players queuing up from the international team to get their pictures taken with him, and it's all, celebratory. Obviously, if the results go their way, I just think he's been absolutely fantastic. His pace, he's tracking back, which is obviously huge for a winger as well, to support the midfield and the defence. He puts in so much of an effort all the time.
He's such a difficult player to replace, and I think that's one of the issues. Like when he's not in the team, you really notice it, because you're not getting someone with that work rate, with that pace, with that goal scoring threat that he brings, and that versatility that he has as well. Can play through the middle capably. So I think, like, in terms of replacing him, I just dread the day that he leaves Celtic, because there's no one like him. As Roger said, he's one of the best in the world at pressing. And I think I have this conversation with a lot of people, and saying that if he had a first touch and if his end product was more consistent, he wouldn't be at Celtic. He'd be They play in the Premier League at the top of European football.
Mhm.
But just on him for I think 13 goals. It's the same number of goals as Nicholas Kuhn this season.
Phenomenal.
It's just the assists that sets Kuhn apart. But like you say, Kuhn's equally as important for this side. And this kind of first half of the season has been a real making of him for me. Came in, had the kind of dental issues and wasn't really playing. But what do you think of him? Good season so far.
Phenomenal. Do you think, well, what I was going to say is, I
Mhm.
wonder in January if anybody's going to test the water for bids for either of them.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of reports, isn't there? Like, I think, was it Ange Postecoglou's Tottenham with the latest team to be linked this morning? So
Yep.
I think Celtic have to stand strong in January with Kuhn. You can't
Yep.
afford.
No.
I mean, I know they're in a really good position in terms of the league and the Champions League and everything, and the treble is very much on. But at the same time, he's such a key player in the
Yeah.
drop off. You see between Kuhn and Yang, like or even Forrest when he comes on. Was it the Motherwell game in Boxing Day? It was Yang that started on the right, and when Kuhn comes on as a sub, the difference he makes. He's
Levels
top
different class. Different
Yeah.
class. The way he carries the ball, commits his man. I mean, we've seen wingers, we've been spoiled over the years to have some great wingers. You know, you could rhyme them off. He's just his body shape. Defenders square up and they think, right, he's going to go in this foot. They just get tied in knots by him.
Yeah, and it's interesting as well because you just know he's constantly going to cut in on that left foot, and there's nothing you can do about it. Like, he's just so quick, he's direct, and he's getting product as well. So often you get guys like him who are fast, they slalom between the opposition, but they don't have the end product. But Nicholas Kuhn certainly does, and he's proven it in the Champions League, and I think that gained him a lot of attention as well. The goals against RB Leipzig, but listen, I think if he keeps up this form, definitely Nagelsmann will be looking at him.
That's the big thing, isn't
it? And that's the thing as well for Celtic, though. I think they'll be hoping maybe perhaps he doesn't get that call up because that's even more recognition and we'll get more teams interested in him. But that's the business model. You bring guys like him in, and if he does leave, say, next summer, he'd only have been at the club 18 months, bought him for £3.5 million. If you sell him for 30, that's over £25 million straight profit. And that's what it's all about. And that's the difference financially between Celtic and Rangers. Celtic are doing that they'll buy 3 players and 2 of them will be successes and go for big money. Rangers will buy 10 players and 1 of them will go for big money because they can't either develop them well enough, they can't deal with their contract situations well enough. But Celtic are, as well as being a good football team on the park, off the park as well, they're extremely well run. I know the board and people at the top of the club got a lot of criticism. Perhaps this time last year, even when things aren't going too well, and I think they're the first to get the finger pointed at them when things don't go well. But when things are going well, they equally deserve a lot of credit. When the accounts came out a couple of weeks ago, what was it, over £70 million in the bank?
Unbelievable.
It's incredible.
I remember back, Josh, to the days of old. I had my first season book, Tommy Burns, before the stadium was rebuilt. And going back, I often do, being my age, I go back to looking at days where you were queuing up to see what the voucher was to get in the stadium with your old paper season books and all that. It's like a different world.
Yeah.
And looking at the finances and the times of desperation and everything else, and to see now that the finances are flowing the way they are in the club, the business model, as you say, we didn't have business models back then. It was just try and get a successful 11 players on the park to get us through week to week, and try and get and compete with other teams that were financially doped and cheating. But the transformation, the fact that, you said we've got markets all over the world. We've got the Asian market where we've done really well bringing in the Japanese players, and no doubt behind the scenes the club are profiting from that enormously. But the end product being the fact that these guys actually enjoy playing in Scotland, all of them. I mean, there's been a couple that came and went, Kobayashi and the boy that went down. Who was the other player that went down south and he's doing well?
Yeah.
Tomoki. Sometimes feel as if maybe he should have had a bit more of a chance. But again, as you said earlier, how do we keep all these guys happy? It's difficult.
Yeah, and I think that's the good thing what you've seen with Rodgers over the past kind of couple of weeks in general is that managing that squad, he's done really well. Like when you have the games that you do, I mean, that's what Rodgers gets paid for at the end of the day, and whether he listens to the sports science or not, like across the city, if he's right, he's managed it very well. And I think he's got, like I say earlier, 9 games in January. They're going to need to managing that squad, which I'm sure he will, and that's what he gets paid to do. But it's good that you've got the quality and the depth there. Even guys like Bernardo not consistently starting games, he's an elite talent in my opinion, and only 20, he's only going to get better, and he's not even our first choice starter every week. It's like you've got so much great talent in that squad, and that's what's setting Celtic apart.
Even how we doing, boys? We're back. A wee swift move.
Changing rooms.
Wife's back early from work. There's a meeting to do in the office now, so I've moved myself downstairs. But listening into you all the way, and some fantastic points as you've seen it making. You bring it up with it as sort of financials. Like Celtic find ourselves in great position there, Josh. We came out with an increase that was about 4% for those that are interested, about £125 million a profit, equating to about 77 million. That was a year ending in June. Now look at where things have been on between Champions League performances, all that income there, and taking the money that comes with winning that cup, the money that will be inevitable with the league. We're in such a strong position. You're talking about the squad, you're talking about the quality that's there, and that's obviously going to be moving into January, something that we're definitely going to have to look at doing. The manager continually talks about quality. Last season, as I say, it was a wee bit more sticky. It was a bit last minute. We got in Daizen Maeda. People were wondering if it was going to work or not. It did. But I just get this feeling that as we move into January, it's definitely going to be far more focused. I would expect us to get players in, hopefully at an early point, and that they can't be used, of course, for the remaining 2 Champions League games. However, if we get past Young Boys of Bern, that all but gives us safe passage into Champions League. Next phase, you can then register those guys for there. So that's something that I definitely think is one that we're going to have to look at, something that I'm quite excited about, and everything's in a right good position. If we want to talk about then that sort of guys coming in, because there's been a few things that have been mentioned, of course. One is persons leaving, but the question's over, is it going to be leaving for Taylor? Unknown. I don't think too many folk, despite his good contributions, he still polarises, doesn't he? I think if he says let him go, most folk would be kind of content with that. But another one is Welsh. Now, he's a guy that we've discussed before on here. Josh and I have spoken at length about it. I spoke to you, Paul. The talk that he might be off on loan to Belgium. I believe it's Michelin that are in for him. And they've came back a few times for him. Welsh has been one of these guys that always seems to attract interest, regardless of how we maybe perceive his form. And he's very in out of the team, doesn't really get ever consistent run. But one thing I think you can say is he's had consistent opportunity.
Yeah, he's a Celtic man. He's come through the academy, Celtic through and through. It's just unfortunate that the level that we are looking for is slightly well above, what he's able to give us. But when he has been called on, he's been, in there, putting his head in where it hurts on many an occasion. But ultimately, we are looking for a higher level of centre-back. I think he'll go in January. I think that's all but a done deal, signposted, and just to be signed, sealed and delivered. I think he'll go. He needs game time. A player of his age, at his level of his career, he needs to be playing regular football. He's tried to get his time at Celtic to be fruitful, but unfortunately for him, it's not come off. Wish him all the best. I think that's a loan that will potentially maybe even turn into a permanent move. Who knows?
Mm-hmm. What about yourself on that one? Where do you sit there? I know that you're on looking at the guys in the periphery and the youth and loan players. Is that one for him that he's gone out on loan with a view of maybe like Jack Henry, he performs and we can sell him on? Or is it, are we sending out someone that we've had for years and got a real good look at with a view of saying, can he perform and come back? It just seems strange.
I think for me, Welsh, whenever he's played, he's not done too bad. The Dundee United game at Tannadice a couple of weeks ago, had a decent performance there. He came he started in the Glasgow derby this time last year at Parkhead, came off injured in that game at the 40th minute or something, but up until then, thought he coped pretty well. So he's got talent and he's got a good amount of games for his boyhood club, but I hope if he goes, and I think it's all but inevitable now, that there's no buy option. I think you send him out there, see how he does. Belgium's a decent league, it's a decent standard. Michelin, I think, are kind of sitting mid-table at the minute, but we've seen it before with guys like Jack Hendry, like you say, he went out there. Celtic, I kind of think we're done there in terms of eventually getting a low fee for him. But going back to Scales, when these guys go out on loan, there's nothing to say that they can't impress, do well, and eventually come back. And if there's injuries, take their opportunity. So that's why I think you shouldn't have a buy option in the loan, because if he does well, then you can perhaps get other interested parties. So I'll be interested to see how he does in the second half of the season, because like we say, we've always said it with Welsh, he does need games. His injuries have been bad to him, and you felt sorry for him that Celtic just have one of their best centre-halves in the modern era in front of him, and Cameron Carter-Vickers, and no one's replacing him at the right side of the defence. So it's harsh on him that he's come in at this period, but he's been a good servant to Celtic over the past 4 years or so. Came in during the COVID year when times were tough, done all right by all accounts in those games, and he's developed since, and it'll be good to see him get the consistent game time.
Definitely. I mean, in terms of him, he's the only real name that sort of almost definitely came out to say he's going to be a departure. There's obviously that surmising, there's always the opinions of I think they should go and so on and so forth. In terms of the other guys that are around the squad, we know that we need to add positions, particularly those wingers. And again, I keep saying it and bringing it up, but there's been nothing mentioned. We know Bernabe comes back and there's interest there, so take that one as you find it. That's kind of a moot point. He's more than likely going to move on in some capacity or another. But where does that leave these other guys that are in and around our squad? We've got Malik Naroki. He's been sitting there, the best part of £4.5 million. We've seen nothing there. He's been nowhere near a squad. He's been nowhere near any sort of minutes. We've got Yang. Yes, we've been dripping him into the squad, but I think even when we look back to the weekend's game there, he shows levels of promise, but it's too little at this stage of his career and where Celtic are to keep him around to really be anything more than just another average player who's not going to make it. Palmer's the other one that comes to mind. Then there's other guys like Kwon that are out on loan. Are we likely to see any movement on any of those guys? Obviously, Kwon is out on loan, but those other guys there, is it likely to be any movement on them, St. Paul?
Who knows? That's where we have to trust the manager and trust the process, as we've seen before. And Scales is an absolute case in point, where he went out on loan, went to Aberdeen and come back, and he's now flourishing. He takes on the roles that he's now given, and looks to develop even further, and I'm sure he will. I think with the likes of Kwon, that's another one. A lot of people actually forget sometimes about some of the players. You need to look at the list of actual players. He's one that kind of slipped by me. I saw him coming on. I didn't see the full game, but I knew he came on as a sub, I think, against Hearts. I don't know how much game time he's played. It impressed at St Mirren, certainly. So he's another one. Whether he would come back or whether that loan would be extended, we have to caveat what we see on the park in terms of players that we think, what we observe and what the manager's seeing behind the scenes. Mike Norovsky, whatever you call him, Naroki, he's hardly the looking, and whenever he come in with a big fee, and you're thinking maybe he's going to feature, and he's hardly the looking at all. I think the manager's got a different idea behind the scenes, and we just have to trust that process and go with it. But who knows what will happen in January, with the moves in terms of loans. I think we'll be more looking at bringing more loans in instead of, doing anything with the ones that we've got existing.
And that's the thing, talking about that, some of the names that have been sort of swirling about, the silly season's just about to start off, Josh, as we well know. A name that we got from last summer, got injured, that didn't quite work, was obviously Ange Balakwisha at Antwerp. That seems to have resurfaced again. Again, in terms of profile, young player, quite exciting, good output in terms of his numbers. He was a mainstay for them prior to his injuries, just sort of weeding himself back into the game. He's only had a handful of appearances. Maybe that's a player that, if it's someone that we've been keeping tabs on, depending on that injury, of course, that will always be taken into consideration signing any player. But because he's not been featuring, he might be a player that you could get at a slightly reduced rate. Not that we need to be trying to reduce the rates by the money that we've got. He's one that's came up. There's also been some mention of players down south. Now, we'll talk about it, and you and I did. And I don't necessarily take too much from these, but I think the underlying point here is it's good to see ourselves getting linked with names of a certain standard and a certain quality. Whether it is just paper talk, agents throwing Celtic's name into the mix, it remains to be seen. But the two are obviously James McAtee, attacking midfielder currently at Man City. He's made it very clear that he wants to leave. The big problem is he's at Man City. He's been out of Sheffield United. He's had 9 appearances for City so far. 3 opportunities he's come on the Champions League for them. But it's the teams that he's getting linked with. It's Leipzig, Atalanta, Dortmund, West Ham. There's loads and loads of teams out there. And the second's Kieran Dewberry Hall from Chelsea. slightly older. He's 26. He's at a right good prime stage in it. This season, 15 appearances, equivalent to 857 minutes, 2 goals, 1 assist. Now, again, he's of a certain standard where he'd easily walk into most middle or even slightly those top 6 type teams down in England. Is it a comforting thing to be seeing ourselves linked with these, or is it just, as I say, it's a lot of garbage, it's media nonsense?
I think I don't read too much into the midfield links from what I've seen so far. I don't think Celtic need a midfielder in January, if I'm being completely honest. We've already got 5 good options there. The winger links, Balikwish has not gone away. I think his injury record's quite bad if you actually look into it. I've not seen the specifics, but from what I've been scrolling on Twitter and people have been talking about it, saying he's got a bad injury record throughout his career, which is the last thing you probably want, especially if you're going to be bringing Tierney back as well. Yeah. One, just going back to the loan, and it came out this morning, was Odin Holm to the MLS on loan.
I've seen that. It was a late one as well, yeah.
LAFC was the team. So, interesting. Remember Celtic were linked with Matejs Bogus in the summer?
Yes.
Polish attacker, very versatile, can play on the left, can play through the middle, can play on the right, can play in behind the striker. I wonder if that's one that will resurface because the MLS season is over now. And if Holm goes one way to LAFC, I wonder if Bogus could come the other way. Because Celtic, as we've said so far, need an attacker, need a winger, need a forward in January. Rodgers has spoke about bringing the firepower in, so I wonder if Bogus is one where looks like it could perhaps be a long-term target. Good age profile, I think 23, 24, Poland international. So I would be excited to see that one if that happened.
It was quite funny. You mentioned Holm there, and again, another player that I'd almost completely forgot even was a thing at Celtic. I mean, what's your thoughts on that there, Paul?
That's another one. My God, I think we should actually have a list of the whole team put up and who's available on loan and who's in the first team kind of roster as it was. Holm has been another one that's hardly to look in, and if we can get him playing football elsewhere, is there potential there for him to be a future Celtic player? It'd be hard to tell at this point. I think he would definitely need game time elsewhere to see how he develops. I think Brendan would be keen to do that, and if anything was to come back again, he came in with this kind of not a high billing, but I think there was a kind of level of expectation that this guy would be a player, and so far he's not really had much of an input at all.
No, definitely, and that's the thing. There's going to be plenty of moving around, and it remains to be seen. January's very, very a funny period. We'll sit there and we'll get linked to everybody and anybody. We said earlier, I think that probably the most likely one is going to be Kieran Tierney. That's probably a stick-on. Again, it comes with its sort of question marks. There's no doubt the quality there is, Josh says we'll be looking at someone like Balikwish with a potential injury record, particularly when we're looking at somebody like Tierney, who there's no avoiding it, whether you want to dismiss it or not. It's very, very clear. He'd be a guy that'd be demanding a decent wage, and we need to balance up the pros and cons of that. I'm sure more will come out as the remaining days come and the transfer window opens up. I think the important thing for us is still trying to thin the herd a wee bit. There's a lot of nonsense in this team, but who's it going to be? It remains to be seen. Josh, do you think that there's going to be as many in as there out?
It'll be interesting to see, actually, because you look at the guys who are on the fringes of the squad, like we've mentioned, Odin Holm, other players, Palma, your Yangs of this world. But I think in terms of points to strengthen, I'm thinking a winger definitely. But other than that, there's nowhere really else. You've got, I think a successful team needs 2 decent options in every position. Now, goalie, you're fine there. Centre half, you're fine. Left back's fine because Taylor's going to stay the rest of the season anyway. Right back's fine with Johnstone and Ralston. Midfield, you've got 5 good options, and if it goes belly up, you can bring up an academy player, you can bring up someone else. And then winger, I think that's the one that sticks out. You've got Maeda, you've got Kuhn, but the drop off in quality from Maeda and Kuhn to I know Forrest has got quality, but he's aging.
Yeah, of course.
You've got Yang, Celtic have had an over reliance on Kuhn and Maeda. They've got 26 goals. They've scored 26 goals between them in the first half of the season. You cannot rely. I know they're very good players and they probably will keep it up, but you cannot rely on them to keep that up throughout the rest of the season. If one of them gets injured and you're having to rely on a Yang, you're in trouble. So you need to strengthen in the wings, definitely 1 or even 2. Forward, Got Kyogo and Daizen Maeda. I'll be interested to see Johnny Kenny's coming back from Shamrock Rovers. He's going to start training with the first team after the Glasgow derby. So I'll be interested to see how he does. 20 goals for Rovers in 2024. Second joint top scorer in the UEFA Conference League. Looks like a clinical striker. Something a bit different. I think he can perhaps play out wide as well. So maybe he's one of the ones where he comes back from a loan and does pretty well, similar to his countryman Scales. So I think winger is definitely the one that sticks out for everyone.
Yeah, I've been quite. You mentioned Kenny, and I'm quite happy to see that come back. There's no harm in it. And again, I come back to what he says about would you let Kyogo go? Equally, I'm on that. Let's try things out because we are plain sailing. Now, obviously, we could be on the cusp, whisper it, of another invincible season if things keep on going this way. You know, it'd be nice, wouldn't it, if we could do another invincible treble? Just imagine the meltdown there. But in that position that we find ourselves in, particularly the likes of we've done there at the weekend against teams like St Johnstone, you've got guys like Kenny in that back. Let's try them out. Let's see what they've got to offer. Even the likes of we're talking about midfield options, yeah, we've plenty there. We've also got players down the youth squad that you put on at. The boy Cummins, he's on fire. Let's not see why not? Let's get him involved in the team for these sort of games against your St Johnstones and the likes. See what they've got. No harm, nothing ventured, nothing gained, and all that kind of nonsense. But for the last couple of minutes of the show, let's crack on because let's look ahead towards the big visit to Snake Mountain. Of course, you know, there's nothing to really worry about. As it said at the tagline, there is nothing to fear. I think whenever we asked the question before when they had a wee bit of form and we were wobbling or not performing at our elite level, so as that game looking a lot harder than it would have been a couple of weeks ago, well, it's funny how things very rapidly change because they've had two absolute stinking results. I watched the game against Motherwell. I thought they were horrendous. They conceded 4 goals, no matter how many of them were made to count or not. Of course, we now know that the goal for 3-1 should have stood. I don't see much uproar about it. I await a statement. We'll get it. So, if a Motherwell team who done nothing against Celtic, all right, they're at home, can cause that amount of hassle to a injury-ravaged Rangers side, then look at what we can do. Going into this game here, Josh, for me, I think we do something not necessarily completely different. Let's just do what we do. I would go all-out attack. I would want to see Vai in there. I would want to see Engels, McGregor, Hatate, Maeda, Kun, Kyogo. Just go for it. Just go for it. For me, I don't want to try and feel the game out. I don't want to try and feel the game out. I don't want to let it be slow burn, get a foothold in the game. No, I want us to just put the foot in the gas, 100 miles an hour for the off, and try and bury them.
I think, I don't want to be Mr. Negative, but I think it's going to be a difficult game. Rangers have got nothing to lose. They're 14 points behind. A loss puts them 17 behind. There's not much difference there. I think they'll accept the league's over anyway. So Rangers have got nothing to lose going into this game. And Philippe Clement hasn't beaten Celtic yet in 6-7 attempts. They haven't won a meaningful game against Celtic since April 2022. We're now about to go into 2025. So I think Rangers will be well up for this at Ibrox. No Celtic fans. They'll see this as their big opportunity. Where they know the league's over, so in their eyes it's a dead rubber, and they always seem to do all right in dead rubbers. But I think it's going to be much tougher of a game than a lot of people expect. And Celtic aren't going to rock up to Ibrox and win 3-4-0. Listen, they might. I don't think it's going to go that way. I think it's going to be tough. I think you're going to have the crowd against you. Decisions, you never know how they're going to go in the derbies. Celtic got one that kind of went in their favour in the cup final. Could it swing the other way this time? You don't know. A sending off 10 minutes in could ruin the game. So I think it's going to be tough for both sides. Celtic are more than capable of going out there. But Celtic, they didn't turn up in the cup final at all. So the players will have a point to prove and say that, yes, we can play our swashbuckling best attacking football against Rangers on the big stage in the big games. But tactically, it'll be interesting because in the cup final, what we've seen was Rangers just crowded the middle of the park and stopped Celtic from playing through there. Celtic were forced to go wide and they made mistakes and they were poor in general, apart from a 15-minute spell at the beginning of the second half. So how Rangers set up for me is going to be interesting, because if they set up like they do in the cup final, allow Celtic to have the ball, rely on mistakes, they're at home. I don't know if the crowd will accept that. I think Rangers have to go for it. And if they do, that leaves the gaps for the likes of your Maedas, your Kyogos, your Kuhns. But Celtic have to be clinical. I could talk all day about this game. Overall, I think it's going to just be tight and tough. I don't think it's, especially with the no fans situation, I think it'll be difficult.
Yeah. Paul, the term dead rubber, free hit, these have all been thrown around. I think in terms of, for them, yeah, is it a free hit because the expectancy is so low, but also at the same time, it is a free hit for Celtic. No matter how you want to dress it up, Celtic go there 14 points ahead. A draw, the status quo remains. A loss, yes, it would be a body blow. It would be, at this moment in time, for me, completely unthinkable, given the trajectory of our season and what we want to achieve. A win buries them. It's as simple as that. So for as much as they have got their free hit to try and get the big bad monkey off their back that is Celtic, at the same time for us, we can surely go there with a sort of a sense of freedom to go and try things and be a bit more expansive and play our game and get ourselves into what we've been used to be doing. Do you see it similar to Josh, or are you in the more Paddy camp of it, going out there and completely righting some wrongs?
I think I spoke on a video recently about box office, Brendan, and in certain times of the season, I think Brendan can just deploy a team that will, go on another level. That the preparation could not be better. We're going into this encounter with a squad that have options. We've got positive headaches for the manager in various positions. We've got players back. They are on their arse, for want of a better word, in terms of their league position and their fans' mentality. Social media and the scoreboard and everything in the past few weeks has been an absolute laugh. There was a supporter of theirs on the scoreboard last night, hoping that we win so they can get rid of their manager. They are a team bereft of leadership, rudderless, some would say. I think I am 70-30 in your camp, Steve-O. I can totally understand where Josh is coming from with what could play out. I hope it doesn't. Famous lyric by Fred Durst in an album years ago for Limp Bizkit said this could be the one. So many times we look at these games and we go into them thinking 4, 5, 6-0. Who knows? But I'm edging towards that. I must admit that positivity that we could just go there and be actually, unplayable, which I'm sure we will be.
Well, there's plenty there, and just to sort of finish it up and wrap it home, obviously you are going on that Rangers need to provide, they need to do something, they need to try and bounce back, if you will. They're certainly not back, but could they bounce back? And there's fan sort of minds there. I think that for me looking at it, as I say, is their injury ravage. That's the thing, Josh, for me. Yes, they can solidify the midfield. They have some decent enough players in there. They have some attacking threats with the likes of Czerny, who's been their go-to, the young guy, Egeman, who, he was garbage against us in that cup final, but again, it's been one of their shining lights. But you can't avoid the fragility that they have at the back. That's what I'm looking at, and that's why I think Celtic need to go all-out attack. They were getting severe problems off a very limited Motherwell side. Celtic are a completely different kettle of fish. The skill, the ability, the speed, everything that our players have got is levels and levels above. And I just don't see that backline, if it's going to shape up the way that it is. If you say, Tav, you can say whether you like him or hate him. I'd like him to play, but even removing him, are the options, they're a lot thinner, because who would normally be there? It would be Sterling. Well, he's having to cover at centre-back. Proper, he's there at centre-back. Yilmaz, and so who would be the right back? What would their options be? They're really, really having to shuffle the pack. So you can see why I've got that level of sort of confidence in it.
Yeah, definitely. I completely understand that. And obviously, looking from the outside in, like if you're a betting man, you'd be putting money on Celtic to win, definitely. But I just feel like the derbies never play themselves out the way people expect them to. The cup final, like say, people probably expected Celtic to go and win comfortably by 2 or 3, didn't play it like that. The only one that's really played out in recent times the way I've expected it to is the first derby of this season. Celtic won 3-0 at Parkhead. Easy. Blew Rangers away that day. But that was at home. I think it's just a totally different dynamic going to Ibrox. And on the day, anything can happen. A dodgy decision, an injury or a penalty or something. But at the same time, an early goal and the way Rangers are at the minute, an early Celtic goal, that crowd would turn like you would not believe. So you've got the benefit of playing at home in front of your own fans in terms of the backing they'll give you. But at the same time, it can easily flip the opposite direction. And those supporters, if Celtic are winning at the break, the boos you will hear will be like nothing on earth. So that can easily go either way for me. If Celtic turn up, they should blow Rangers away. But it's just, are Celtic going to turn up? What Rangers are going to turn up, we don't know. It could be the Rangers that's been back for the past month. It could be the Rangers that could beat at St Mirren. We just don't know. And it's all about seeing what happens on the day.
Well, I'll let you have the final word of the show here, Paul. I fully agree with what's been said there. And I do think that it'll be interesting to see. There's been talks, a lot of their fans want to boycott. Let's be honest here. No fans, whether it's us or them, are boycotting that fixture. That is what the bulk of your season ticket money goes to. That's the games that you want to see, even if you're going to be watching it through the hand, through your fingers, with your hands over your face. But for me, it's 100%. There's only going to be their fans there. And for as much as you can say that'd be positive for them, they've not been doing them any great service with the booing players coming on the pitch, booing players off the pitch, and everything else in between. And for me, that is just as much a hindrance at this moment in time from where they are as it is, going to be a benefit. And I think that's why Celtic need to go there and try and shut this game down early. I genuinely believe that if Celtic get an early goal within the first 10 to 15 minutes, that they will fold. That is my honest opinion on it.
The wee bit of tactical genius, if you can call it that their manager managed to find or come up with in the cup final, I think Brendan was maybe a wee bit surprised by the midfield line. So I think we'll be aware of anything that they could deploy in terms of tactics. Their tactics on the day are going to be to try and stop us from playing. We turn up, we play, we win. And Josh said, that crowd there could turn and it could be a terrible afternoon if their players feeling the fact that they've got all those bodies in there could be a hindrance. We just turn up, we play, we win that game. This game is coming at the worst possible time for them, I think.
Well, we'll see. There's only a couple of wee sleeps before it comes, and we'll be here. We'll be there to cover it after the event and when it happens. And as Steve says, it's going to be hoofball. If you want a wee insight into how Celtic, thank you very much. Here's one for some lucky person out there. Thanks again to 420 for that donation of membership. But yes, it's a wee interesting stat thing that I found. So if you go onto the BBC's website, you go into our match stats and you drop down, there's drop down menus, and it will tell you how many long balls were played. Go and seek out Celtic and Rangers' last two fixtures and you will be incredibly, well, you won't be surprised of the amount of forward long balls that are played in a Rangers match, and that's exactly what we're going to get. So I don't think we're going to get any difference from there. Celtic need to go there, play our football, get our foot on the ball, early goals, kill the game, kill any momentum, kill any confidence, whatever, and that'll be that. We'll see it. It's coming up. It's New Year. I'm sure you've all got stuff to go and do and get yourselves ready. So I just want to once again thank yourselves, guys, for your input through the course of the year. New addition, and Paul, very welcome here. Everybody has been enjoying it. It's been a pleasant addition. Of course, Josh, as always, thanks for taking time out. So, guys, enjoy the rest of your day and whatever the new year and the bells bring in. And likewise to everybody out there watching, whatever you're doing with yourself this New Year's Eve, take care of yourselves. And, of course, we will see you after the Rangers game. Hopefully 17 points. But it is a free hit, isn't it? So until the next time, take care of yourselves, enjoy your new year, and hail, hail.